With regard to why Watts pled guilty, I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this. And then he stops himself. I don't know. To me, it sounded like he was maybe about to say, I didn't want anybody else to get in trouble or something like that. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Because he stops himself. He says, I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this for 2 or 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years. They would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do, Like, they take their defendant and they say, hey, like, what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story. So what do you guys think he was about to say? I mean, a lot of people, and I'm not even sure for sure, but it sounded like he said, I didn't want anybody else to get into trouble, or what else would he have said instead of that? And then he stopped himself. I didn't want anybody else. And then, okay, so then I didn't want them to go through this 2 to 4 years. So then, he goes on to talk about the lawyers, so the attorneys. So, I mean, I guess he could have been just going to say, he was going to say, I didn't want anybody else as far as the lawyers, maybe he was going to talk about. I didn't want them to go through this for 2 to 4 years. Possibly, I don't know. But why did he stop in mid-sentence? Just the way he did it, it's almost like he caught himself from saying something he didn't want to say, And then he started talking about the lawyers and the attorney. So whether or not he just kind of changed the way he was going to say something, or did he actually catch himself in something, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But I have it timestamped in my video, the interview video. You could click on it. It's in the description. And then, no, I think it's in a pinned comment. The pinned comment for that part 1 of the interview. And you guys could listen to it and see what you guys think. If he was about to say, I didn't want anybody else to get in trouble or something like that, or was he just about to, talk about the lawyers, and then he just changed how he wanted to say it. I don't know. But, okay, so he said, I didn't want anybody else. I didn't want them to go through this 2 to 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years. They would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do, Like, they take their defendant and they say, hey, like, what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story. You could see he still uses the word like in every other sentence. Okay, a few weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about everything that happened. So I wonder if we would match up what he told the attorneys with this interview, if it would be exactly the same. I would love to hear. I wonder if they recorded that interview. I mean, do you know, like, when lawyers have when they talk to their defendants, is it always recorded? Because if it is, I would love to hear that recording to see, if his story changed at all, and exactly what he said at that time. And I wonder if, Tammy or Coder or Baumhofer, do they have access to that video or whatever? I'm sure the lawyers, if they didn't record it, I'm sure, at least audio record it. And if they didn't do that, which I think they probably would have, but if they didn't, I'm sure they have written, transcripts, or it wrote out, what he told them about what happened. So I'm sure it's documented somewhere, So do you think they have access to that interview or that talk that he had with the lawyers? I wonder if this is the first time they're finding out that he even told his lawyers the truth. I don't know. And now, after knowing that he had, he did confess the truth to his lawyers, wonder if they're going to go back and listen to either the recordings, if they recorded it, or read the transcripts, the notes they took, to see if it matches up. I would hope, though, now after knowing what they know, that he did tell them, everything that happened, that they'll go back and ask the lawyers to listen to that listen to his confession or read the notes or whatever, however they recorded it when he told them, to see if it matches up. And I wonder if they would be allowed to do that because of the whole attorney-client privilege, or is that what you call it? I'm not sure if that exists, considering if it still exists after, his case is already over with, he's in prison for the rest of his life. Does he still have those privileges? I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. And I would love to hear that interview, because that was sounds like that was how long? Just a few weeks after. Oh yeah, a few weeks after his arrest, he told the attorneys the truth. So that's when everything would be even more fresh in his memory. Not saying it would be more truthful. I'm just saying I would like to hear what he said at that time, and if all the details match up to what he's saying in this interview. His attorneys asked him if he was ever offered a plea to plead guilty, would he take it? He said he would plead guilty in order to end it all. His attorneys asked him about 100 times if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. Before he walked into the courtroom, his attorneys asked him again if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. His attorneys never told him he had to take the plea deal, and they had a lot of creative motions to file and were ready to fight. He told Wash he didn't want him to fight for something where the story wasn't true, because it would have only gotten worse for everyone. He does not regret taking a plea deal, but he never thought he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. He didn't want for everyone to have to relive the case every day. He told his parents the night before he pled guilty that he was pleading guilty for a reason. His parents had received correspondence from people all over the world who told them the Thrive patch wasn't FDA approved and can alter someone's mind. His parents still believe he was railroaded and felt pressured to plead guilty. He does not feel he was pressured because his defense team asked him plenty of times. His parents talked to him about using the defense of CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, for being in an emotionally abusive relationship. He could relate to some of the information, but it doesn't make up for what happened. When he talks to his parents on the phone, they believe there's a chance he could get out of prison. On his parents' bad days, they tell him he should fight it. His mother loses it a lot on the phone. His dad always tells his mother not to talk about it with him on the phone, because he, Watts, will go back to his cell and think about it all night. He plans on telling his parents the truth about what happened when they visit him in April, May. His parents sold his toolbox so they could afford their travel. In October 2018, the prosecutors went to Sandy and Frank Rusek and asked them about a possible plea deal instead of the death penalty. His defense team told him there wasn't enough evidence on certain things, and that he, Watts, told the defense team it needed to end. He felt like his attorneys were fair and were similar to guidance counselors. He felt like he, Watts, was in charge of his own decisions regarding his case. His attorneys told him he needed to show more emotion in court, so he didn't look like a cold person. His attorneys told him he could look at the crime pictures, and he, Watts, refused. He prayed for the hazmat workers and anyone else who had to see the aftermath. His attorneys told him if the case went to court, he would have to look at the pictures so he didn't have a reaction when they were shown in court. Watts asked if Sandy and Frank Rusek saw the crime scene pictures, and he was told no. He didn't want Sandy or Frank Rusek to have to see any of the pictures, hear anyone talk about what they saw, or hear anyone bash their daughter's memory. He wanted everyone to know Shanann was a loving wife and always helped everyone else. He remembered Agent Lee, an essay coder, came into the room after his father left and tried to get the true story from him. He wanted to bang his head against the table. He didn't want all of us, essay coder and Detective Baumover, or myself, to have to get on the witness stand and testify about what we saw. He didn't want everyone to have to relive what happened over and over for years. He felt like Shanann's family could start to have closure. But yeah, closure when the last he said anything, that Shanann did it. So, and then he just if they wouldn't have came in and interviewed him right now, it was just left at, them thinking, knowing Shanann didn't do it, but wondering what happened, because the last, that Chris said was a lie. So how is that going to give him closure? Them just sitting there wondering, what really happened. you know, if it wasn't for them coming, you know, and for this interview, they would still be wondering, and there would be no closure. So with regard to if his decision involved not having the death penalty, when he was in his cell in the Weld County Jail, he felt like he should have died. All the inmates would yell at him at night and would explain to him all the ways he could kill himself in his cell by drowning himself in the toilet or hanging himself. He didn't kill himself because he felt like he may have a different purpose. He prayed to God that God would move him away from Colorado. He heard there was a hit on him in Colorado. He felt like he would last a week in Colorado DOC before someone would kill him. He felt like God moved him for a reason. With regard to if Watts thought about trying to use the defense about Shanann killing the girls at trial, he never thought about Shanann killing the girls until it was mentioned to him during the interrogation. After it was mentioned that Shanann may have killed the girls, he just went with it. He knew his dad was out in the lobby and his parents would probably believe Shanann was involved because they never liked Shanann. I never thought about that story, and, you know, that's what my attorneys were going with. 2 weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about what happened, and they were quiet and wrote it down. There you go, they wrote it down, okay. His attorneys told him they wouldn't judge him and appreciated his honesty. With regards to Watts' past childhood, he was always someone who tried to coax people down. He was in one fight in his entire life, which was in 3rd grade, and he and the other kid ripped each other's shirts and left crying. He wasn't popular, but was never bullied in school. He had braces and a Jim Carrey bowl cut haircut. He never talked to many people at school, even though people knew who he was. He never had a girlfriend in high school and always flew under the radar. He didn't have low self-esteem, but also didn't want to be a part of a group or clique. He had a couple of friends and appreciated his close-knit relationships. His sister was always the popular one and was outgoing. He and his grandmother would sit outside the middle school, and his sister would always be the last one out of the school because she had to talk to everyone in the hallway. He was the opposite of his sister. He didn't want to be popular and just wanted to be a regular guy. He cannot recall anything he would have pent up from childhood with regard to how his father's addiction affected him. His father became addicted to a white powdery substance, possibly cocaine, after he left home. And that was another kind of weird reaction. He almost pretended like he didn't even know what cocaine was. Like he was like, yeah, there was this white powdery stuff. I guess it was cocaine. It was like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like any adult would know what cocaine was. Not necessarily saying they tried it, but I mean, watching movies and knowing what it is, I don't know. He kind of played like kind of stupid about, like, it didn't even, I don't know. It was just kind of weird, his reaction when they asked him about that. His father's addiction didn't hurt him, Watts, as much as he thought it would. And then that kind of makes you wonder, well, why didn't it affect him that much? Is it because he just didn't have those emotions, you know? Is he a narcissist? Well, I mean, he made it seem like he didn't really have a reaction, like no emotions about it, no feeling bad, or no effect. So that kind of makes you wonder why he didn't have any reaction or emotion to, you know, his father being addicted. His father addiction didn't hurt him, Watts, as much as he thought it would. When he talked to his father about his addiction, his father immediately changed the subject. His father was coping with the fact that he, Watts, never came back home. His mother initially believed his father was having an affair because he couldn't account for missing money. He, Watts, has never used drugs and tried to talk to his father about why he was using drugs. He told his father he was throwing his life away. His father lost a lot of weight and his nose bled all the time. After he, Watts, talked to his father stopped using drugs. He was always closer to his father than his mother. His father always came to every one of his sporting events. His father would come to his games even if he, Watts, wasn't going to play. He never saw his father cry. His mother was a loving mother and gave him affection. His mother always wanted to know how he felt. If there was something wrong, he would never have told anyone and dealt with it himself. I don't know if growing up that way kept me that way. Deal with the things on your own, but then they build up so much that you can't deal with them. and they take a hold of you, you never thought in a way they could take a hold of you. With regard to Watts' planning evidence, after he murdered Shanann, he threw her cell phone and Apple Watch on the couch. If he had planned it, he would have taken her items out to the oil tank site with him. He took off Shanann's wedding ring and put it on the counter so it looked like she didn't want to fix their marriage and wanted a divorce. He threw the therapy book away in the trash so it looked like she believed nothing would work in their marriage. He may have gone down to the basement to get trash bags. Motion alarm on basement door. So they're saying that maybe, he's saying maybe that's what, motioned that alarm, because the basement door was left open. So I don't know. He does not recall going downstairs to work out that morning. With regard to what he did after he went into the house that afternoon of Monday, August 13th, Watts was in the house for approximately 1 minute before he went to the front door and opened it for law enforcement. He went in through the garage door and opened the front door. But see, we know that that's not true, because if he would have went right from the garage to the door, it would have took a couple seconds. He was in there like a minute and a half. And I wish they kind of would have pressed him on that, because all he said was, no, I just went right to the garage, or I went right to the front door. And they should have said, you were in there a minute and a half. There's no way it took you that long just to go from the garage to the front door, I'm still thinking that's when I feel like that's when he put the phone and the Apple Watch in the couch, because maybe he had it for some reason, and some reason he's trying to hide why he had it coming home from work. He still had it on him. I don't know. And then, when he went in, he put it in the couch. I'm not sure, though. But I feel like, what did he do for a minute and a half? It seems like he would have done something. Okay, so he ran upstairs and pretended to look around for Shanann and the girls. Atkinson's son found Shanann's cell phone. With regard to Watts looking in the passenger side of Shanann's vehicle when he entered the garage, he does not recall looking in Shanann's vehicle, but he possibly opened the passenger door because Atkinson had mentioned seeing the girls' car seats. But no, because he didn't even look in the back. He opened the front door. The car seats are in the back. He opened the front door. He looked above the visor and then bent down. Maybe that he picked something up. I'm not sure, but he wasn't looking for the car seat. That was obvious. Okay, so he threw the sheet to their bed away the day after the murders. When you strangle someone, sometimes they evacuate their bowels, and that occurred with Shanann, and was the reason he threw away the sheet. And that's another thing I feel like he's lying, because if she had done that, then did he change her underwear? There would have been stuff on her underwear that would have showed that that's what she did. So that makes you wonder, he said he didn't change her, put clothes on her, that she had that on. So he's lying somewhere. Either he changed her underwear or she didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because how couldn't it be in her underwear? I don't know. Maybe that was, and maybe they just didn't say anything, but I don't remember reading anything in Discovery about that, but maybe it was just something they just didn't mention. So I don't know if that's a big deal or not. It might just be something they just didn't mention, or maybe something I looked over, but I don't know. Okay. But also, then they had that sheet, though. They had all the sheets. Wouldn't they have said that there was on the sheets, too, though? I don't remember them, saying that there was anything on the sheets like that. And they had the sheets and the evidence, Don't you think they would have noticed if there was something like that on the sheet? Okay. With regard to Watts' communication with his father the morning he picked him up from the airport, it was strange when he picked up his father, because he knew it was probably the last time he would see him on the outside. His father just wanted to talk about sports when they were in the car together. His father always tried to deflect the conversations and change the conversation when they needed to discuss something important. His father asked him, Watts, if he knew where Shanann and the girls were. Maybe he kind of figured out something maybe happened, and he just wanted to talk to me as a son. He was told his father never left during his, Watt's, entire polygraph interview. If his father knew what actually happened, his father would have told him to admit what he had done. His mother was always the more aggressive one in his parents' marriage. His and Shanann's marriage seemed to mirror Shanann's mom and dad's relationship. Shanann similar to her mother, and he, Watts, was like Shanann's father. Shanann's mother always told her she would marry someone like her father. Shanann's father always liked him because he helped fix Shanann's car when they were dating. He, Watts, has always been the one to help people, not to hurt them. He, Watts, never tried to change Shanann. Shanann's husband in her first marriage was more like her mother, and it didn't work. With regard to if Watts knew, walking into the police department the morning of the polygraph, that he would confess to what happened. He knew there was a reason he was brought back into the police department the following day. The polygraph was horrible. He was asked questions for 3 to 4 hours before the polygraph, and it's like you just break down somebody's brain to where, like, to mush, to jello. I know you guys have a job and you have a plan and you executed it. He knew when he was asked about what he did on Saturday night and he had to talk about the Rockies game, it was going to be a thorough interview. Walking in there that day, just walking into that room, I knew I wasn't walking out. With regard to Watt's media interviews, he never wanted to speak with the media. He felt like the media was going to continue to knock on his door until he answered. Nicole Atkinson called him and told him Fox would be at his house at 10:30 for an interview. He doesn't even want to know what he said or what he looked like on the news. Some people said it made it look worse after the fact. He ended up just lying to more and more people by talking to the media. He heard he looked like a heartless, soulless person. With regard to if Watts spoke to NK after the murders, he spoke to NK on Monday, August 13th. He and NK texted and spoke on the phone. NK said she believed Shanann took off with his daughters. On Tuesday, August 14th, NK kept asking him weird questions through the text message to try and determine if it was really him. NK asked him what his dog's name was and what yoga studio he went to. It was possible NK believed Shanann had his cell phone and she was making sure, which I don't know. I don't think she, cause like I don't know. That's kind of weird. I don't think that NK thought Shanann had his phone because, like Tammy says, Shanann would know these answers to the questions she was asking too. So I don't know if Chris was just like didn't realize by him saying that statement, was he really thinking that or was he lying? Because obviously, she didn't think, she was trying to probably testing to see if maybe the cops had the phone, some authority, FBI, police. That's what I think she was testing, because they wouldn't know the answer. But yeah, if Shanann had the phone, of course Shanann's going to know the answer to those questions. So I think, she was asking it just to make sure that, the cops didn't have the phone. So I don't know if when he said, he thinks she was seeing if Shanann had his phone. I don't know if he really believes that. Is he just saying that for some reason, or does he really think that? That's kind of stupid. Why? That don't even make sense. She would know the answer. So maybe he just wasn't, I don't know, maybe he just wasn't thinking when he said that, because that doesn't make any sense. But he has had all this time to think, so wonder why he would claim that he thought she was asking him that because she thought Shanann had the phone. Like, I feel like he doesn't just say things for no reason. So there's a reason he wanted them to think that that's why, that she may have been asking him those questions. It's like for some reason, it's like he didn't want them to think it was because she thought that maybe they had the phone rather than Shanann. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure why he would want them to think that, but it's obvious she didn't think it was Shanann, and she thought, maybe that he was arrested or that the cops had his phone already. Okay, so NK told him it was the last time he would hear from her, and she was going to stay with her friend Jim. Now, did she end up staying with her friend Jim? Or was she just telling him that because she just wanted him to think that so he wouldn't, she wanted to make sure he didn't come over, so he would think that she wasn't even home. I don't know, because when she goes and talks to the cops, she doesn't say anything about staying with her friend Jim. She said Jim was already back home, remember? Because they said, can we talk to Jim? Oh, he already left. He's already back home. So, obviously, at least a week after, because I think she went in a couple times to talk to the cops. I mean, she was obviously lying to Chris, so it might have just been as simple as, it might have just been because she just didn't want him to come over. So I wonder, did she really go stay with him? Is she with him right now? I mean, I don't even know where he lives. What did he say? I'd have to go through the interview again, but doesn't Chris say he lives in Wyoming, or I forget now. I'm gonna have to listen to that again. But he lived there, or maybe he wasn't sure if he still lived there, or he was moving, or I forget exactly what he said. But I mean, maybe she's staying with him right now. Maybe that's where she's at. I don't know. Okay. NK told him not to contact her until this is done. And that's kind of a weird statement. Until this is done, instead of until your family, you find out where your family is, till your family's safe, until you figure out where they went, but that's kind of weird. Until this is done.